What's up, everybody? We are back. You got me, Chris with a K. You got Jason. You got Mr. Sooners 360 himself, Chris Mason. We got definitely a really good show for you guys tonight. Got some interesting topics to talk about. Obviously, we are in the thick of things of this Team 131 fall camp, and guys, we are literally one Saturday. This is the last Saturday without college football, which is amazing. So if you're a college football fanatic like I am, you're probably geeked about Irish Formageddon. So, hey, with that being said, we'll jump in here. How you guys doing tonight, man? We doing good?
Good, man. Excited to be here.
All right. It's been a busy week. Chris Mason, you doing all right?
Yeah, back in the land of broadband connectivity. So my Google Fiber is fully back up, and the Ethernet in my office is now working as per spec. So,
all right, awesome. So, with that being said, we got some recruiting stuff we'll talk about later on tonight. I know you people are dying to hear what Jason probably has to say about Jackson Arnold. You probably have heard a whole bunch of that stuff. So, look, we've heard a lot of things through the money line this week. We've heard a lot of things through the grapevine this week. So, a lot of stuff that's happening in Sooner football. Finally, we can kind of focus in and kind of hone in on, hey, these are the last 2 weeks. We got to get to it. So, guys, hey, look, if you watched Oklahoma Breakdown this past Wednesday or whenever that dropped or whatnot, great insight as always. It's hard to go against those guys because those guys did it at a very high level for OU. So shout out to Gabe and shout out to Teddy for always being able to give us be our eyes when we can't necessarily, be there physically and see what they're seeing. But they always have great stuff. But you gotta start on what Iker was talking about, people. I mean, that old line. I mean, injuries have popped up a little bit. No concussion protocol. I know last week or the past couple of weeks we're telling you, hey, there's a different approach to it. Hell, if you get a cut on your pinky, you're probably going to end up sitting out just as a precaution. But it seems that there is some real heat going on in these battles as far as you're hearing about Howland, you're hearing about Foj, you're hearing about probably running out there with Foj and a Fabechi Nwewu, maybe even at left guard. So, the thing is that it leaves you to be, a little bit awestruck just by the possibilities, just by the competition that we're having and the guys that are stepping up and really setting themselves apart. It leaves you not necessarily worried, but just a little bit confused because I think that we in our minds, we had our starting five, which would have been Sexton and left tackle. You would have had EPL at left guard. You would have had Everett at center. You would have had Nwewu at right guard. You would have had Simmons at right tackle. But right now, it doesn't sound like that. Or maybe it actually is, and we're just feeding into too much of the media. So, Chris Mason, with that being said, I'll start with you since you kind of are one of our resident O-line guys. Like, what is your take on not only what Gabe said, but just what you're hearing as far as camp notes on this offensive line?
Well, I think it's relatively clear that Ozida and Howland are knocking the rust off their shoulder surgery outage and are now that they're being force-fed some reps, are getting back to the guys that we were so encouraged about at the end of last year. So you move Howland to right tackle because you've got a couple of guys out at right tackle. You don't need him backing up for Susi while Sexton is out. I think EPL and Ozida are fighting inside. Nwewu, apparently, Nwewu, we all had questions about Nwewu a couple of weeks ago when we had Brady on. But it looks like he's having a really good camp and he's doing really well. He's in better shape. I've heard people say he's in much better shape. Stronger, just looks a lot better in a uniform. So overall, I would say we're seeing the impact of the improved depth and the improved talent across the offensive line. We're about to get a couple other pieces back. Isaiah Dent's about to get back out there. They've been cautious bringing him back from his knee injury with the new back to practice, back to playing time guy. So where we've been hearing good things from Mr. Dent about that process. So, Gabe saw Monday practice, and it sounds like Wednesday, Fasusi and Howland held their own at tackle and allowed the offense to dominate the scrimmage and put up points and put up touchdowns. So I wish we'd almost heard Gabe after the scrimmage, that he'd been there to watch the scrimmage, and we would have those live notes, because he was talking about Monday practice or like Saturday practice or something. I'm not quite sure when he went out, but it was clear from their podcast that he hadn't been out. He hadn't been to practice when they recorded on Sunday night. Teddy had only been to practice, and Teddy was talking about the team. So Gabe's now been there. You obviously have to. I was very encouraged by what Gabe was saying about the offense, about the defense. His thoughts on how great the defense looked, about Peyton Bowen and some of the other pieces. Gabe and Teddy had a spirited discussion about Kendall Daniels and what he could mean for OU. So, I think the big news is overall that you've got depth and you've got competition. Both Howland and Fasusi are, according to my source, getting kind of a fire hose of reps. And Mike's, and you give someone with Mike's talent that many chances to get better and stack those practices day after day. If I'm Jacob Sexton, I'm in the concussion guy's office saying, dude, get me back on the field. Same thing for Simmons, Derek Simmons, because, from that perspective, Howland has all the tools to be, a top shelf right tackle as well. So he's getting all those reps. So I think it speaks to the depth on the team. It speaks to the talent. When you've got Ozetta and EPL fighting, we've got a true battle there. And you've got Ryan Foji pushing Fabechi Nwewu. Now, can you move Nwewu to left guard if you wanted to and play Foji? I'm not sure. We'll see how those things work out.
Well, it sounded like what they were saying was that no matter what, Fabechi is a starter on this offensive line.
I think he probably, as long as we'll see, right? Gabe said he was actually moving folks, right? And if he's moving folks, that means he's moving either Jaden Jackson, David Stone, or Dom Williams. And that'll work, right? If he's moving one of those guys, that'll work for us all year long.
Can we we're just real quick, just read this comment here and let's react to this. So Sammy Chandler says Fabechi was handicapped last season because he had Bates on one side and Spencer Brown on the other. No chance he had a shot to reach his potential covering for those two. That's a fair point. I'll let you two react to that.
Yeah, I mean, Fabechi didn't have a veteran good right tackle almost all season. The best he had was Mike Tarkman, who was limited athletically, but at least was assignment sound. Yeah. I think Fabechi was too heavy, and he wasn't ready for the SEC, right? I think that's also clear. He wasn't the step up from – he was at North Texas, right? Have that right?
Yes.
He wasn't ready for that step up. This offseason, he's clearly worked, and he's ready for that. He's going to have a senior center behind him in Troy Everett, who's a leader, and then he's leading as well. So I think it's a much better situation across the offensive line right now. I mean, last year when we lost the tackles, we just you had Brown and Tarquin playing, and do I feel better about the fact that our fourth and fifth tackles are Michael Fasusi and Logan Howland? Hell yeah, I feel better about that situation than last year. And also, I feel great if somehow Fasusi and Howland continue to seize their starting positions. I feel great that Sexton and Simmons are behind them, pushing them to get better. And if for some reason they take a step backwards, that you've got veterans to go right in there who were playing well. But there is a I don't know where the tipping point is, but there is a tipping point that if Simmons and Sexton are just held out like another week, I'm not sure you don't reach a tipping point where Bill has to just say, Fasusi and Howland are starting, and I'll integrate Simmons and Sexton later. They're starting. I need them. That's the game plan. I need to get my game plan for Illinois State and Michigan going.
Mhm.
Little birdie told me that no shock to anyone, they're doing a lot of Michigan prep in camp. Just do a lot of prep for what they think they want to throw at Michigan, both defensively and offensively. They're working on that. Been working on that a lot. So I think we're reaching a tipping point, Chris, where if they're not back by a week from today, I think Fasusi and Howland are probably starting the Illinois State game.
So let me jump in here, and this will be the perfect segue to bring Jason in. So first off, Sammy Chandler, he says Fabechi was a freshman All-American for a reason, took a step back because of the trouble we had as a group last season, big step forward this year. Hey, look, I'm optimistic. Look, I if that's the case, then I will try to share your optimism. My whole thing is this right here.
Graded out better than anybody at the end of the season too. So I mean, this is not like it wasn't going on at all last year. I think early on he struggled for sure.
I get that, but it's just still one of those things. Look, you got to have a push. I mean, we saw it last week. The film has to show it now. We don't have time right now. I think the majority of people in the chat, majority of OU fans, I still believe that there's a big the consensus feeling is that, hey, we think BV is the right man for the job. It's just it has to come together. But with that being said, where I want to segue and bring Jason in is this right here, is that, look, we could talk about Fasusi, we could talk about Howland and all the rest of that stuff at tackle, but guys are out, whatever the case may be, and opportunities are coming up. But to me, the odd man, it seems, left out, and kind of just a knee-jerk reaction off of this whole Gabe thing was EPL. So here's where, Jason, so here's, like I told my uncle the other day, here's where I kind of, on one hand, I get what Gabe is saying, but on the other hand, I don't, because for the last 2 years, especially with offensive line, he's been very critical about, hey, there are guys just running across your face. It's almost like Matuire or these guys, they don't even know what they're doing half the time. Just hit somebody. If you don't necessarily know the plays, know what's going on, go find somebody. Go find somebody. Being nasty on the interior. You know for sure, if you listen to the show, you know that I'm always big on, hey, we have not had nasty interior old linemen in quite some time.
Not enough.
So so Gabe is a guy, and a lot of people are, which rightfully so. They know the game. They played it at a high level. I'll give them that. So they are big on technique, but at the same time, what you've been asking for the last year or two is for somebody to bring that physicality, that nastiness back to that interior. So why now are we flirting with the idea, or should we flirt with the idea of starting Foj at right guard and then Nwewu at left guard? I'm under the impression, I'm under the belief, I like EPL there at left guard. That's just me. Jason?
Well, if he's ready to go, I think so. I think a lot of people haven't been talking about the fact that, he was a little dinged up at the end through the spring and stuff like that, though, too. It was part of it, I think. So I don't think, when you look at what EPL is, he came late last year. He was a summer guy. He didn't come in for the spring in his first year. So he was probably behind on that. I think that he showed us what he can do as far as nastiness, though, in the time that he was on the field. So I tend to agree with what you're talking about. And I think if it's a difference between him and Heath Ozida, I think you got to put him in. I think as far as Fabechi's concerned, I think that it's, I keep hearing from what I heard from Gabe that meant the most to me was he's the best offensive lineman in the room, period, in the story. He wasn't talking about position. So I think Fabechi is where he's going to be. In short of injury, he's not going anywhere. He's going to play on one side or the other. Do I think EPL's the guy there? I don't know. I think nasty streak notwithstanding, I'm going to go with what Bill Bedenbaugh thinks. That's just kind of the way I feel about it. And I think that the problem with it, if there is an issue with what we see from Big Bill, is that he wants you to have it down. He doesn't want you making mistakes. He doesn't want you blocking the right guy or not knowing what the hell you're doing. And you need to know what the hell you're doing to be on his offensive line. But I think we've talked a lot about this, about who does it matter who starts and all that kind of stuff on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the D line, because you're going to run them in there. It almost feels to me like you're going to see a lot of guys all the time on the O-line as well. I don't know. I don't know what I think as far as, who's where and stuff like that. We're not out there to see it. Those guys. And to be fair, Gabe said that was the first practice that he's seen of the fall. So, I'm not going to go too far with what he's talking about, other than, I do tend to trust what he has to say. The guy's a freaking multi-time All-American at Oklahoma. So, I have a hard time not listening to him. But one of the things that I don't think people are talking about is the tackle as much with the injuries that you've had. You've had guys like Isaiah Dent coming back, and he's starting to look really good. He's in the top 2 on the left side right now. You want to talk about big and nasty and able to move. That guy's big, nasty, and able to move. I think that he's going to have something to say about who's starting where. I think you might see him a little bit at right guard if Simmons isn't back and healthy sooner than later, because I think he's able to kind of work into that right guard position as well. So
right
tackle.
Yeah.
But I think that, in the end, I got to tell you guys, the one thing that, yes, we want to see them be better than they were on the O-line last year. I think that it's hard to get a ton of looks to where you're going to really, really think that during the fall camp and certainly, before that, because this defense is that good. And so they're going to push you around a little bit. But if they were dominant in the scrimmage last night, they have to have been very, very good on the line. So if I'm gonna trust anybody on this staff, at any position coaching period, it's gonna be Big Bill.
I feel that. So
did you see the interview with Bill, Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw him talking about Arbuckle. You could tell that you could tell, like, I've got a guy, I know what he wants from me. I'm gonna kick ass. I've got the guys to do it. Don't bring up did you see him snap back at the reporter who asked him about the injuries last year, trying to get him to talk about last year? Bill's like, I don't want to talk about any of that crap. You could tell some of the things he was saying about Arbuckle. Bill's a pretty straight shooting guy. I kind of got as almost his way of saying, last year was completely screwed up. I got a guy I can trust now who knows what the hell he's doing, and I got a way forward out of this O-line mess. I got it, guys.
Biggest thing to me, the reason why you could see this type of shift, or you could see some of the things that Gabe was talking about, is simply the fact that Arbuckle, right? Arbuckle, to me, if you go back and watch the tape, Arbuckle wants a pretty athletic offensive line, pretty agile offensive line, guys that can move, not only just because of his counter plays, but just period. And if he had those athletes and all the rest of that stuff, he's just asking you, hey, give us time. We can make something happen down the field. So with that being said, let's pivot back to you, Chris Mason. Got a question for you on the center position. So seems to me that, Michaela is starting to pop up in a lot of conversations. Are you convinced? I think we spoke last week or the week prior to that, and I think you were under the impression that he probably will redshirt, right?
So Gabe kind of put this out there, and he's been putting this out there since Michaela committed and signed with OU, right? Because Gabe just basically doesn't think that Everett's long enough, big enough to be a center for OU in the SEC. So that's Gabe's bias. Gabe may be completely right, but I'm having a hard time understanding how Troy Everett is starting every practice, has led the offensive line throughout the offseason, and is the veterans and is your senior veteran for a group that might have a couple of youngsters on it. I'm having a hard time understanding how he isn't the starting center unless on the field something critically goes wrong, right? So I get Gabe. Gabe's always been, Gabe has his biases from playing O-line and being a center, and he played center. And like you said, I get all that, but sometimes sometimes I think Gabe's biases about what O-line play should be kind of override the way things really are. Like, this should be the way things are, and instead of, well, this doesn't, from a leadership cohesion standpoint, I don't see. I'll be surprised if Makula really challenges Everett for the starting spot in the Illinois State game. Michigan game, everything's up in the air, right? If you can't get it done against Michigan, you're probably not going to get things done against Texas and Alabama.
Because Everett's going to be a captain, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. So it doesn't. I think Gabe was looking just at body types, and I think, for lack of a better term, he's kind of fallen in love with what Makula will be next year, which is 6'5", 315, with a long reach and super athleticism, and kind of that big, not as big as Creed, but that bigger offense, that bigger athletic center that I think is kind of the ideal. But I think Everett will start. But again, once Michigan comes in, and if the Michigan D-line knocks OU all around the place, guys are going to get swapped out. So that's just the reality of it. You'll try if Makula gives you better results in the second half against Michigan, will he take the job? Yeah, but I think right now, Everett will start against Illinois State. We'll see the cohesion of the starting five and how well they look. But from that standpoint, I think it's Everett starting at center, and then Weiwu at right guard. It'll be EPL or Azetta at left guard. The tackle positions are really about Simmons and Sexton getting back on the field in an appropriate amount of time that Bill feels like they are prepared to start against Illinois State. And if they're not, then he'll hold them back, and there's no harm giving Fasusi and Howland to start against Illinois State if they're playing well. I mean,
well, you probably should be playing them anyway, because you need, and especially if you've got some injury stuff, you don't want to mess with it.
Exactly.
Concussions. You don't need to rush guys back from concussions.
No, they've been sitting out for a bit, so it's fine. But I would say, Chris with a K, I would say this is more a case of where Gabe is looking at his ideal center, and he's not viewing the whole totality of what's going on with the center position and the position Troy represents in the O-line room and the O-line group. So that's I would say Everett starts. Will we see Makula? Yeah, we'll see Makula, because I'm hoping that we're blitzing these guys, and we're going to see Mikey Hawkins out there with Makula as his center and with a good O-line group behind him. So I think that's where we are. So the horns down. So your question, I would say, based upon hearing that they just dominated the defense with Fasusi and Howland playing tackle, my confidence right now is probably a 4.
Got Topher B in here. Topher B says 4. Stan J. Ross says 5. Jimmy Satterfield, shout out to Jimmy. He says 4. Where you at, Jason?
5. Give me 5.
All right. I'm a try to. Me. Y'all know I'm a homer. Y'all know I'm a big homer. I'm gonna go a solid 3.54 right now. Just because.
Homerish. That's real homerish.
Just because, I'm gonna be honest with you, just because there was some sprinkled in, and hey, a lot of younger guys got reps last night, different things last night. So I'm just saying, look, I was convinced that I knew what my offensive line was going to look like, to begin the year, but this is Bill Beatonbow. You never really know. So expect the unexpected. Guys, that was a great conversation. Let's keep it moving to our next topic, which is go ahead and give your projections. Everybody in the chat as well, give your projections for the 2 deep in the DB room, because we're hearing a lot of stuff right now. We don't have to talk about Cheetah. I think Cheetah is gonna be fine. Whether that's Daniels, obviously Dolby healthy. I mean, come on, man, Dolby's that guy. But when right now with Eli Bowen being out, are Are we looking at Guillory? Are we is this Jacoby Johnson? Is this his show? You got Davon Jordan. You got Newcomb out there who's making a lot of plays. And then also the name that we keep hearing an awful lot, Reggie Powers up there in that safety room. So, I mean, to me, I think that you're going to see a bunch of guys as far as like a Boganowski, Hardy especially. I think you're going to see those guys, but I think it's one of those things where I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that you haven't heard Peyton Bowen's name an awful lot. I mean, praise God, he's healthy, right? He's out there on the field. So this could be the year that you see his best football, but at the same time, it seems like Reggie Powers is pushing to get a lot of snaps, a lot of time this year. So what does your two deep look like right now if you gave projections?
Go ahead. Okay. I think obviously if we're talking corner right now, I mean, Gentry Williams is going to start if he's available. But I don't have any reason to believe that Cortland Guillory is not going to be in this game and playing some at corner from the way everything that we've been hearing about him. It feels like that's probably where he's at. As far as the other side, listen, I don't know. I would hope that Eli's ready, but it doesn't sound like he is. So, I mean, I think that the good news is you've got guys like Guillory. He's going to start over there, and Jeremiah Newcomb. So I like those two guys. Jacoby, I know I hadn't heard a ton about him, but I haven't heard anything bad about him either. So it's one of those things where you kind of expect. I know I was being in there and going and watching a practice at Mustang. I saw his little brothers, and they're studs, man. So, I mean, I can only imagine, what he is now after a few years of being beefed up and everything else with Schmitty and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen the film of him when he was in high school. He was unbelievable at everything. I mean, good offensive player, good defensive player. He's a guy that you feel like he could be sticky. I feel like Jacoby's probably somewhere around that top two on one side or the other. But I don't know. It feels like it's one of those deals where I don't know that it really matters. I'm not as concerned as I thought I was going to be before about that position, because it just sounds everybody is playing so well from what we're hearing, right? Yeah. On the back end, I think it's pretty simple. I mean, Peyton sounds like he's been doing very well. Everything that I've heard about him is that he's getting it. He's even in some run fits that you think he's probably a better coverage guy. But in run fits, he's even looking really good right now. I think that's probably when you're going to see Boganowski coming in a little bit more, would probably be for the run fits because of the hitter that he is. But I think that, or Reggie Powers even, because, it'd be Reggie. Boganowski's going to back up probably RSJ. That's easy. We expected RSJ to be, I mean, he's their guy back there, right? I feel like he's that dude. So it'd be Boganowski at the two, Reggie Powers at the two behind Peyton, and then, the guys that we expected to be there anyway, as long as injuries aren't there. But Hardy, I think that, we heard a little bit. I heard Peyton talking about that Hardy's a little hard on himself a little bit, maybe. And so maybe he's not really in the top two, but I expect him to play some. And I would also even say, there's a couple of those younger cats that there's just a lot of dudes that you can run through that one too. So again, I don't even know. I'm not sure why we're bringing up this one necessarily, but because I think it's a crapshoot, but I don't know that you lose a whole lot from one guy to the next.
I don't necessarily, and I get that. I still think it's a good question simply because even though we feel good, maybe not everybody else feels good, because at the end of the day, we're still young. These are still guys who are very hungry, and we know the type of talent, because I think a lot of people were big on a Newcomb. There was quite the buzz, quite the stir to try to go and get a Davon Jordan, right? Guillory's another kid. We got kids down the line, but when you hear these names and everything pop up, and you see the injury that presents itself, and kind of the unknown with Gentry, because Gentry goes out there and looks like $1 million first drive, then the next drive, he's holding on for dear life for a tackle, and then boom, his shoulder is done, right? So that's kind of been the worry. That's kind of been the concern. So where are we at there? To me, what I think should give us the most confidence, Jason, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, is the fact that you have a Gentry who's been in the system for 4 years. You have a Jacoby Johnson who's now in the system for 3 years. You have Davon Jordan and a Newcomb who've been in the system for 2 years. This is the best thing about this.
1 year.
Well,
Yeah.
they've been there in 1 year, but I mean, hell, let's just go ahead and call it a year and a half now because hell, they're about to be in their second year. So regardless,
okay, but they're redshirt freshmen. They're not sophomores.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, you round that corner. They know the system. That's my point. So they know the system. So you're not sitting out there running out there with guys who don't know the system or guys who just, as Stanley Chandler is pointing out about Woody, who their position just may have just. I don't know, the time may just pass you up. Regardless, though, the thing is that you have guys that know BV's system in and out and who can go run that system. And these are guys that I like Jay Valai. I can't speak for the rest of everybody else who's had him as a DB coach, but I like Jay Valai. And I like the assortment of the talent that he's gathered. So to me, I think that's what should give you the most confidence is that these guys are in this system. It's not. It may be their first year playing, getting like real snaps, but it's not their first year trying to grasp what a BV defense is trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I would go Gentry with Jacoby backing him up, and I think we're probably going to see either Guillory or Devon Jordan start with Jeremiah Newcomb probably backing him up at that position, based upon I think Eli's out until Auburn. I've got nothing backing that up other than the fact he's still in a boot and he's not practicing. So I think Eli will be a second half of the season kind of move. Again, like I said, last week, I think when we did the stream, that was the injury where I'm like, I don't know what's going on with that. So, but that's what I think. And obviously at safety, it's going to be Robert Spears-Jennings with Bogo backing him up. And it's Peyton Bowen and Reggie Powers in a knife fight to see who starts, but the other person's going to play a lot. And I think you probably, I'm not sure where Dolby is in terms of Illinois State, but obviously he factors in somewhere at Cheetah along with Daniels. And also if you move Powers to Cheetah, then I think Dolby maybe is in the mix a little bit at safety or a corner. I think he probably could play either one. He's enough of a dog that I think you could put him out there. So, but right now for Illinois State, that's where I would go with the two deep in the secondary. RSJ, let's just say Bowen will be the guy who walks out there from seniority standpoint, and then Gentry, and I think Devon Jordan or Cortland Guillory, and it's a toss-up. We hear great things about both so far.
Yeah, and I think that all are going to be able to get a lot of snaps, especially these first three. At least two out of the 3 games, they should be able to get a lot of snaps as well and a lot of time to kind of, validate the reasoning behind them even being, up there. But I think you could see a rotation of corners, but that's the cool thing is that at least we know that, hey, we have depth and we have depth that actually knows the system. So that's what's going to help. That's what could balance some of the woes that you may face. But these guys are hungry. You could tell, you can look at them and see these guys are hungry to get out there and actually prove themselves. But like I said, I mean, these were guys that a lot of other teams, big name teams wanted. So we have them here. So for sure, I'm excited about the secondary this year. I think it could potentially be. We've heard, rumblings about Nagy saying at one of those dinners that he had that, hey, the secondary is
the best unit on campus, the most talented, deepest unit on campus.
Exactly.
There's a high level ceiling. If Gentry can play this year and Peyton Bowen gets back to his freshman year playmaking form with Reggie playing with him as well, and Robert Spears-Jennings playing well, and somebody else steps up across from Gentry Williams. I mean, that's a cornerback. That's a secondary room that will hunt. I mean, if Guillory's this good that he can play, and everyone physically says he looks great, and these guys can keep everything going until Eli Bowen can come back and make that room even better. I think Nagy made the right decision not spending money on a cornerback who wouldn't be more than the third team on the depth chart in the transfer portal. Everyone's like, why aren't we adding a cornerback? Well, I think Nagy and his evaluators watching spring ball were like, no, Jay Valai's got the guys. He just needs to coach them up. Go coach them up. I don't need to spend money to fill gaps where we have elite athletes. They just need to be coached up.
Right, and that's what you heard from Venables too. That that they were willing to kind of roll the dice with who they had in the room, and they believed in the guys that they had in the room. We talked about this a lot before, and shout out to Makari Vickers, but you saw him and Josiah. Was it Josiah
Wagner?
Wagner, that they ended up, getting into the portal because they kind of got behind getting injured, a little dinged up or whatever, and they just got behind, the depth chart a little bit. And so that's just kind of what's happening on this defense, where you're getting a bunch of guys that they're all really good. And if you get behind on the depth chart, you're probably not going to catch up simply because of the fact that there's really a lot of talent in the room. And I think that we're seeing that from top to bottom on the defense, right?
Yeah, it's like I'll probably repeat this statement. I may have said on the other live stream. I was talking to just an OU buddy of mine, and he said in the past, guys like Bogo, Danny Okoye, Samo would be like unicorns on the OU defense. They wouldn't have anybody that looks that good or looks like that. Now we've got guys that look like that are second and third team. The depth on defense, there's only 3 portal transfers. Dominic Williams, MJJ, and Daniels. And, that's it. The rest of that 2 deep and 3 deep is homegrown. These are Brent's guys. The continuity on defense has been there, right? We know all about the offense basically got flatlined and nuked and paved with last season, right? And Arbuckles had to start from zero with Batir. But on defense, the continuity is there, and the players are there, and the evaluations seem on target. So the defense. I think the cornerback position. You've seen the additional year. You've seen the additional influence of the guys. I think we're ready for, if Gentry stays healthy, they'll figure out one other guy.
Yeah,
and
they always
if Bowen comes back midseason, which I think is probably what we're shooting at. And again, I got nothing inside that tells me that. It's just he's in a boot.
Anything about him.
He's in a boot. He's in a boot. He's not running. He's not doing anything. So I don't know what's going.
Remember when you were on with me Saturday night too, and I think the professor said something that made some sense. If it is a high ankle sprain,
yeah, he did. He
end up having surgery and stuff on that. If that's the case, and that's what he did, then this time frame would be right around this time frame right now, where he should be getting a little bit better, but he may be still working his way back into it. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah,
so that's the only issue. That's the only issue. Is Eli? When can you get Eli Bowen? And of course, if Guillory hits it, or Devin Jordan again. Repeat my favorite segment.
Devin Jordan. Don't want to forget about him. Yeah.
Tulsa Union cornerbacks in Norman just play. That's all they do. They play and start for 3 years.
That is true. But no, I think somebody put that in the comments. So, all right. Well, hey, look, that's where we're at. We talked about the O-line. We talked about a bunch of battles there. Talked about this 2 deep in the DB room. I think the consensus among us is that we feel pretty confident about it. So let's keep this thing rolling. Yeah. So here is the question right here. I'm going to put that in the chat. Ask everybody. Definitely want to see what you guys have to say in the chat. But the question is, what causes Team 131 to fall short of 9 wins? I've seen this question out there a little bit, and I thought it's appropriate for us to ask that question as well. Jason, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts?
I mean, aside from like a rash of injuries that similar to what we had last year, I really don't see much. I think that you would have to have some serious gaffes, turnovers or something like that would be maybe part of it. I think that this defense is going to be dominant in a lot of games, though. I just don't, with the number of new quarterbacks that you're going to go up against from week to week, in and out of the SEC, obviously, but in the SEC, it's 6 of 8, and that's assuming that you don't lose anybody to an injury, and we've heard some stuff like that. I think anything short of just a crazy amount of injuries like what we saw a year ago, not much. Or it would have to be bad game planning. I don't know that I'd really think that that's happening. Just poor decisions in certain scenarios, just in-game situational stuff. That'd be the last time that I could do it. The last thing that I could think. I think that everywhere that we're talking about, especially we talk about the receiver room. I think if you lost 6 guys right now, you've got 6 more at this point. You know what I mean? I think that they've done that. They've went out and got those guys that you can believe in, and that you probably have at least 6 guys on reserve that maybe if they're not going to be a starter to start off with, they're still going to be serviceable if they get in. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you had some guys that had to grow up fast, right? They had to grow up fast and get in there and start playing. I was asking Boganowski the other day if he'd heard anything about Ivan Carrion, because I haven't heard anything. We're talking about a 6'7" target that don't drop footballs.
Well, he had a big scrimmage.
Well, there we go. That's what I'm saying.
OU.
That was on Monday that we said that. I was asking about that on Monday. I was like, have you heard anything? Because I haven't.
Yeah, big enough that OU football put the highlight out on their social media account.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that was before that.
Yeah. You're right.
That's what we're talking about. So, I know that Bevo's bodyguard thinks that OU sucks at everything, but that's okay. We're going to see what Texas is about coming up shortly. And I just feel like they're loaded pretty much everywhere. This defense is going to do what it's supposed to do. And I don't even think you have to have explosive offense, 40 points a game, team. That's not what you need. And I don't even think that's what you need. I think that if you're serviceable and you can, and I believe wholeheartedly that they're going to go down there and do what they're supposed to do. They're going to put points on the board, take care of opportunities. They're going to take advantage of opportunities given to them by this defense that we know over the last 2 years has been huge at forcing turnovers. If you can get turnovers and you can just do something about that, just go in there and score whenever you get those opportunities like that, and move the ball, not have a bunch of 3 and outs and stuff, which was a big problem last year. I mean, you think about the Red River game, 9 straight 3 and outs. 9 straight 3 and outs. I mean, and the game plan was trash. It was trash. I don't think we're going to have a trash game plan. I think even if Arbuckle isn't everything that we were to think he is, you got Kevin Wilson in the house. Something will get fixed. So I think that they're there. I think that they're going to be fine. I have a hard time believing they don't get to 9 wins. And I mean, I could see them getting further than that if everything breaks the right way.
Chris Mason.
So I'm putting injuries like last year in a parking lot. If we're, I'm not talking about that, right? That kind of applies to every football team, right? If Texas lost Arch, another offensive tackle, and Simmons, they're going to struggle to get anywhere because they don't have backups at those kind of positions any longer. So here's the one way I think OU struggles to get 9-3 or gets off schedule, and that is if John Mateer is not who we think he is, the way Jackson was. That's the only way I see it, is that Mateer struggles with the jump in competition and the jump in play. And he's struggling, and our offense is still, we're making too many mistakes on offense, giving the ball up, and the offense isn't moving like we think it will be. It's just basically that John Mateer isn't very good. I think that's other than injuries, which applies to everybody, Florida, OU, Texas, Notre Dame's lost some guys. Everybody's losing guys in camp. If the injury thing returns to sort of the norm or a normal level, right? Or just something average. I think it's John Mateer. The only way OU doesn't get to that 9-3 level, 8-4, something along those lines, context matters, all those things, is if Mateer isn't who we think he's gonna be, or who everyone thinks he's gonna be, including the coaching staff and anyone that's seen him.
Let me ask you this though, in talking about that. We've heard plenty, and I've said this a bunch of times myself, even since the end of last season, that Michael Hawkins is coming in and looking very, very good. We saw.
No, you're right. I think it is simply, Jason. I think it's simply that they stick. Mateer's not playing well, and they stick with him perhaps too long. Because
okay.
That's kind of they're just gambling. They're like, no, just give him a couple of games to get settled. It'll get better. And they wait too long to make that decision, or something along those lines. That's the only way. That's other than injuries. That's what I see, because I don't think, as you said, Arbuckle's going to have better game plans than the nonsense we had last year.
Yeah.
And we've had a whole year of development that on offense. That's not last year. We just never had nothing developed. The coaches knew nothing about what was going on.
But Chris Mason. This is where I got to stop you, okay?
Okay.
I think John Mateer is going to be just fine. Will he throw a pick?
So do I. I'm just saying.
Well, I get what you're saying. Here, I'm about to land it. I'm about to land this plane. But I will say this. I think, will he throw a few interceptions that we probably don't like? Yeah, I think he's going to be a little bit riskier with the ball. But the thing is this right here. At least he won't be indecisive like the guy we'll talk about later on in the show. But here's what I think could potentially make this team fall short of 9 wins. And that is two positions that have been non-existent. One was kind of pretty existent the last half of the season. You felt better about their performance, but one, we haven't necessarily seen that breakout star or just that guy in a while. And that's the running back position. That's the O-line. I think that if you don't have a solid run game to pair with this Arbuckle offense, what he wants to do in the pass game, that's what could take away. That's what could hurt you. Do I think that will happen this year? No, but I think that is the only concern. And that's why I open up with the O-line. We're talking about the O-line as the first topic of the show. It's because I'm not necessarily worried about where we're at. It's just that, hey, this seems like we were pretty set on these guys. Seems like these guys were gelling together and they were doing that. And then, boom, here we go. We're reshuffling the deck. And I'm like, that's fine. That's the beaten bow way. I get it. But, again, going into the season, to me, I think the thing that could hurt us is, can we actually get a real run game going this year? I think it's possible. We got the guys, but we have to see it. We got to see it. Got to see it this year, because to me, when you go back and watch Washington State, they wanted to run the ball. They wanted to do things in the run game. I think that Wayshawn Jones, or I forgot his last name, but yeah, Wayshawn, he was a good back. When you gave him an opportunity, like space, he sees the hole, he's gone, right?
Yep.
But
they just didn't have a very good line, though. They didn't have a very good offensive line, and they didn't have a ton of skill guys. I mean, Kyle, what's his name, was their guy.
Kyle Williams, the Meredith kid, they had a couple of kids. I think there's some injuries that happened as well on that wide receiver core, but Mateer was really their run game. They relied a lot on the QB run game. It was very reminiscent of something that you would see from a Lincoln or hell, even Levy. It was somewhere in between, because it was like, hey, this is the limited skills, or this is the limited tools that I had, the limited amount of tools that I have, and I'm just going to utilize them. And so John Mateer, if you go watch that Washington game, he put the team on his back, not only with his arm, but with his legs especially. Right. So,
and they didn't always look great all the time, right? But he's tough. His toughness is a big deal. I think I've been saying this a ton, and I just want to piggyback, and I want to go right back to you, though.
No, go ahead.
What I feel about John Mateer is, I think that I've been saying this the last couple of days on my show. It's important that Oklahoma got this guy because of the fact that he's injecting a level of confidence that I don't think that there's been in Oklahoma for the past few years. even with Dylan Gabriel. He's got that swagger, that belief in what they're doing, and he's holding guys accountable too, that injects confidence on both sides of the ball. You're not even hearing, I mean, as much shit as he talks, the defensive guys love his ass. They all love his ass. I think that there's a swagger that you probably needed that's coming with him. I think that no matter what, if Watkins has to come in for whatever reason, he's going to be ready to go. But I think you needed what John Mateer was bringing to the table in order for this team to take that next step, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do too. And Chris Mason, I see where I see your point, and that's a good point. If he's not what we think he is, but hell, if he's just serviceable enough to be able to push the ball down the field, get us down the field, buy the defense time, there are going to be games this season that I truly believe that we will come back. Quick plug for you guys. We will be doing our live reactions and probably other reactions as well. But we go on. No matter if it's 11 o'clock, whatever the time is, we go on. So definitely be ready for that. But regardless, though, I'm sure there are going to be times where we come back and we say, hey, I thought Mateer was good. He wasn't great this game. Defense bailed you out a couple of times. Defense saves you this and that. Because and I know Sooners in Texas doesn't want to hear me talk about because he keeps saying what are the qualifications. But I will say this: he's made a great point this last couple of weeks that I don't think nobody has really talked about. We won 6 games last year. Yes, we won 6 games last year. Texas fan, Bevo's bodyguard, laugh at it, do what you want to do. You won 6 games last year with a shitty offensive line, no run game, right? Quarterback who was just indecisive, hesitant, all the rest of the stuff, all those injuries, your roster, especially the offensive side, things changed defensively when Dolby went out. You just really couldn't recover from all that. But you won 6 games and you played in a bunch of other games, Missouri, and a bunch of other games where you're just like, and we probably win that game if we're healthy. We probably win that game if our quarterback doesn't fumble, in the red zone. We probably win that game if Jackson Arnold just like pitches it to Javonte Barnes a couple of times opposed to trying to keep it himself. We probably win this. I mean, we were in a whole bunch of tight games, so I think Sooner fans have to feel good about that simply because you were like, hey. We won 6 games last year, and there were at least 2 or 3 games where you're like, we're probably sitting here 8-4, 9-3, not feeling anywhere better about ourselves if we just have a couple of plays go our way. That's just my opinion.
Isn't it crazy how many of these Texas fans in here scared shitless of John Mateer right now? Scared shitless of John Mateer right now.
My point, Kchris, is that like, it's not that John Mateer, he'd have to be like worse than serviceable.
Yeah.
To get, he'd literally to the point where we're like, why isn't Brent and Buckle pulling him and playing Hawkins? Like that would be the first part. That would be the first 20-minute multi-voice rant on our post-game reactions. Why the hell is he still playing? I mean, we're talking that bad, and I don't think he's going to be that. And I point to 2 data points, to be redundant there, is Talon, the Arkansas quarterback, and Pavia both transferred in last year and had the same stats in the SEC that they had playing at, was it Boise in New Mexico? Do I have that right? So everyone's like, well, Mateer's coming from a Mountain West schedule. Well, Pavia did that at the Mountain West at New Mexico, and he beat Alabama last year at Vandy. So I think Mateer is, Josh Pate, thinks he can win the Heisman. I'll tell you this, if Mateer is in New York, OU is like no worse than 10-2.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
All right. We've been on here an hour. I think it's time. Let's go ahead. Let's end the show with some fun topics. Jason, what do you have for us?
Well, we gotta do recruiting after that.
We gotta do recruiting after that.
Okay, we were just talking about Jackson Arnold and the fact that he wouldn't throw the ball. He was scared shitless to get rid of the ball. As you can see, that's a problem that hasn't gone away.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi.
Screaming at him too.
He was.
That doesn't help either.
No,
because that just wears him out worse.
I feel like I don't want to root against JA. I hope JA is successful. I hope we beat the hell out of them that fourth game. But
I don't think JA is going to be there,
successful,
bro.
man.
I don't think JA is going to be there.
I don't know. Like, did Seth Luttrell ruin him, or was this just a thing where, to me, the right move has always been go to Mississippi State, and he would have been the starter at some point. Whether he started that season or not, I don't think Blake Shapen would have been starting over him for that long. He was handpicked by Levy. He's Levy's guy. I just don't understand why you didn't go down there and go ahead and just get it on with Levy and see what you could do.
Well, I think maybe that's, I don't know, man. I know that we've now heard that he was kind of like this a little bit in high school too. Once they got up against somebody that was as good as they were, the year that they played in the championship game against, was it Westlake? I think it was, and they ate his ass alive. And then same thing whenever he went up against Jonte Cook. So who was Jonte Cook went to?
Washington. Semifinal. DeSoto? Is that DeSoto?
DeSoto, yeah.
I think it was DeSoto.
Yeah, and he didn't want to throw it there either. They got ass whipped. You know what I mean? They just got their ass whipped. So I don't know. It feels like he's been one of those quarterbacks that's been coddled his entirety of his young playing career, and I just don't know that he knows how to handle this pressure and anything else that comes with it, because I don't know. It just doesn't seem like. It seems like there's something really under the surface there with the kid, and I hate it for him. I think it sucks for him, and I think obviously it sucks for Auburn, which makes me happy. But I really, you look back and yeah, we were talking. I mean, listen, on my show, damn good and well that I said they should have kept Dylan Gabriel around for another year. I don't know that they're 1,000 times better, but I think that in the end, Jackson certainly wasn't ready, and it doesn't look like he's ready now. It looks like he's going to lose the job to another freshman.
I look, here's the thing is that I remember talking to Ty. Shout out to Ty, Round Table Sports. Go check his channel out for sure if you already have it. But Ty talked about it. He said, man, that he said, I asked him, I said, hey, why isn't a kid like the Davis kid up there in Michigan? Everybody's talking about Bryce Underwood, but why isn't the Davis kid getting that he came out just as hyped? Everybody was excited about him, but it doesn't look like he's going to start. I said Jackson Arnold. Why is he struggling so much? Then we started looking around the country, and he said, Chris, he said, man, a lot of these kids are just one read. They're one read quarterbacks. He said in high school, yes, they are really good. Yes, they have all the intangibles to be able to throw very far, to be able to make it look effortless out there. They're mobile. They're all these different things, but they're one read and go quarterbacks. They look it off. If that option is not there, then they're taking off. They're not sitting there really trying to study and read the defense. They're not trying to go through their progressions. And I mean, he kind of the way that he explained it during that phone call very vividly. I mean, to me, it's very evident right now. It's very apparent.
He's definitely in struggle mode.
Yeah. So
he should have chosen a Baylor offense guy, someone from that tree, whether it was going back to Levy or finding somewhere else, or go to USF or somewhere where there's a Baylor guy.
Less defenses coming at your ass like they are going to be, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and just reestablish his confidence in a scheme he knows. I think the Baylor scheme is, I think it's tough, and I think it's tough when you don't have the track athletes that Baylor, was putting out there. I think Tennessee saw that a little bit last year at times, and I think Brent's got that defense. I think Brent's got that offense down. overall based upon what we saw last year. So, yeah, I think obviously the confidence meltdown last year hasn't helped, right? And no quarterback coach situation OU found itself in last year was obviously a disaster. And I'm so happy Jim Nagy's now at GM, because I could just see Jim Nagy trying to tell Jim Nagy he's not going to have a quarterback coach. I think Jim Nagy would be like, "Excuse me? Okay, I'll have a guy here tomorrow. I have an NFL guy here tomorrow." But I think that's all screwed up, Jackson. But he's made bad decisions. Going to Auburn was a terrible decision with that scheme.
Yeah, and it feels like it. I don't know. Maybe Hugh doesn't have it anymore in quarterback selection or something, because Peyton Thorne didn't. I mean, I think he was better than what people give him credit for, and I don't think it was working out with scheme there either. But something's up with it. It just, I don't see that they're doing all that much. You know what I mean? I just don't see that.
Well,
Seawall. I was
the issue that I have with everything that you guys are saying is simply this. If you listen to the national narrative, which I tend to really agree with, it's kind of hard to screw up that job as a quarterback simply because of all those weapons that you have. That's
the crazy part.
Yeah, Cam Coleman, the Singleton kid, they got another couple of kids that they're excited about at that wide receiver position.
The best wide receiver room in the country, probably.
Yeah, they're going to have a solid run game as well. I think the other kid that they had last year went to the league, but still they're going to have a solid run game.
No, they'll miss the Hunter kid. Yeah. They will.
So, but even with that, I mean, they're so talented on offense that it's almost hard to screw up. But it's just one of those things where they kind of like an OU, they've been trending here, there, up there, and then it's kind of just going. It's very even keel right now as far as.
It's kind of weird like that with their recruiting too, right? Because they were in the 70s and now they're kind of trending with some guys, but I don't know, man. It feels to me like, because that Aranda's going to send the house at that kid. If he makes it to Baylor as the starter, he may not make it out of that game. I don't see him making it to week 4 playing Oklahoma as the starter.
Aranda is going to do the same thing that we're going to do against the Michigan kid. He's going to disguise the hell out of a whole bunch of stuff, bait him into some stuff. I think that the interesting part is just to see what does that RPO game look like? Is he decisive this year? Has he improved in that? Because that will, he's comfortable running the RPO. It's just sometimes he likes to, take it himself. I think the interesting thing now, I do have Baylor winning that game, but I think it's a close game. I don't think it's anything to where we should be expecting a blowout simply because of this tape or anything that we've seen or heard about that offense. I feel like it's going to take Baylor. It's going to be one of those games where Baylor probably takes them a second to score to really bust open, but I think they score first. That's a game that I could see being something like maybe a 21-17, 21-13 type of ordeal to where they get it done, but it's going to be a 4-quarter game. So I don't necessarily think I see Baylor separating themselves from them. But then again, if J.A. is anything reminiscent of what he was last year outside of the main game and the Alabama game, then I don't see how.
Well, he wasn't even here. He threw 10 passes in the Alabama game. It wasn't like he did anything
60
special.
60 yards or something. It was like 60 yards of passing.
Yeah.
Right. And hell, if Hawkins is in that game, those 2 long runs that J.A. had, he's in the end zone on both of those. You don't get caught on those 2. So it's just, to me, I feel like, I agree with you though. I think that it's going to be tough for him in that week. I think that week is big, and that's where I was headed with that. Is here's the thing: if they lose that game, hell, Hugh's liable to be out of there by week 6.
He's going to have to win some games this year. He's quietly on that hot seat, in my opinion. I think that it just hasn't necessarily worked.
A student friend of mine is of the opinion that Hugh's trying to get fired, and that's why we've got this whole first and third down first and third down coaching stuff. That's why he just knows he just doesn't have it. It's not clicking. It's not working. And he's just like, okay. Arnold was a Hail Mary portal addition at quarterback. He really was. So, and it's not work. It doesn't work. It's not work. It doesn't appear to be working. So, but they think he's. My buddy's convinced that Hugh is trying to burn this down to get the buyout.
All right. Well, that's enough JA for now. Chris Mason, send us home, man. The recruiting, we got our guy. At least I think I'll say that. I think we got our guy. I think Krul was hell, wow. Then we lost Gross. We did lose Davion Gross. Money talks, BS walks, but at the same time, man, this whole Percy Harvin thing, I was just like, where did they even come from? And then also there's some other guys that could be flipping, right? So Chris Mason, the floor is yours.
Well, they got Jake Krul. So Jake the Snake. If you're following Jim Nagy on Twitter, if you're following Twitter tonight, Jake Krul had 3 sacks already in his first game tonight. And Jim Nagy just posted a photo of what's his exact, get the exact quote here. It's there we go. That's a big snake, and it's an image of some guy wrestling a giant python. So it's pretty funny. So I mean, Jake Krul is basically, he's 6'2", 6'3". He's going to be 245, something like that. And he's basically going to attack the quarterback, and he's going to be a pass rushing specialist for OU. He also plays the run. He's got quick moves off the line. He's got pass rush combo stuff. He redshirts, and I don't think he redshirts. Sorry, I think he enrolls early, and he's in the 2-3 deep at defensive end, and he's part of the mix in there. And then when you add him to the other 2 guys that OU got, who are bigger, longer athletes but need more time to bake and develop, Krul gives you, Krul's ceiling may not be the highest, but his floor is like way high. Like, what you're going to get out of him. And there's also a chance that, he becomes sort of like a TJ Watt kind of comp, something like that, Nick Benito kind of comp, where he's 6'2", 6'3", 250, and he's a beast off the end. I mean, he's dominated almost every offensive tackle that he's seen at combines. Last year, the only guy who I ever saw block him at a camp event was David Sanders, the 5-star offensive tackle that went to Tennessee. The only guy comparable to Fasusi in last year's class. So he's a year older than Krul, and that's the only guy that really ever blocked him. This year, he's had a little problem at one camp event with a head Nacho kid who's gone to Oregon, who's 6'6", 350, just because he's just that big. So he had a little problem with him, but he's whipped everybody else, and they're top 100 tackles in the country. He's making them look silly at camp events and just flying past them. So this is a big addition. ESPN has him as a 5-star, number 22 in the country. The combined On3 Rivals guys decided to drop him to like 160 because they think he's not tall enough. He's too small. Okay. He's dominating everybody dominating everybody that, he can play against. So, we'll see how that goes. But again, I think the number one thing about this is his arrival timeline is next fall. You will play him next fall. He may be a third down pass rush specialist across from Danny Okoye, getting after the damn quarterback. And he may give you 4 or 5 sacks his freshman year, as a situational pass rusher. He's the biggest defensive player we were after. So you've got Bo Bentley on one side and Jake Krul on the other side, which maybe tells you, you didn't get Davion Gross, but they got Jake Krul and they got Bo Bentley. So maybe this tells you where Nagy's willing to spend his high school dollars. Pass rushers, quarterbacks, wide receivers. OU's trying to recruit a kid from Louisiana, Braden Allen, who's a 3-star, committed to Tulane right now. Has really good film, but Colorado and Ole Miss are really after him as well. And I'll just say this: if I'm going to take any underrated from the recruiting services wide receiver, I'll take one from Louisiana. So For those that don't remember, Justin Jefferson was a 5'2", unranked 3-star, 2-star coming out of high school from Louisiana because nobody, they just grow receivers in Louisiana. They just do. So we could pull him. They're still looking at other guys in terms of other stuff. But please post any questions in the chat if you have any questions about Cruel. Otherwise, I'm going to move to the other story of the day, which is James Tank Carrington. So Carrington decommitted from FSU, I think yesterday. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Not thinking it had anything to do with OU or any storyline that was going to roll back to OU. Now, like 10 a.m. in the morning, Steve Wiltfong says that Carrington's going to OU. And I'm like, what? Because OU canceled his official visit. He didn't visit on June 6th because OU canceled it. And every indication out there was that OU moved on from Tank Carrington because he's kind of a tweener. He's not got the naggy length size at defensive tackle. He's not Brian Harris. He's not T-Ron Richardson. He's not Elijah Golden, who chose Notre Dame, or Tavion Branch, who went to Rutgers. He's not 6'4", 6'3 plus, 6'4", 280 pounds right now. He's 6'2", 260. And I thought OU moved on from him. I'm not really sure I understand why they rolled back to him. Again, he posted, I think in May, that he's 260 pounds. So the 6'2", 240 stuff you're seeing, just ignore that. It's not relevant any longer. He's 260 as of May, and he said that he ran 21 miles an hour in testing. That's what he posted online. So that's what he posted on his social media account. So that's moving. I just watched his 7-minute highlight reel from Bishop Gorman his junior year. There's some fantastic plays, and there's some. I think he posted almost every play because it's 7 minutes long, and there are some okay plays. 6'2", 6'3", 260, pretty much the same size as Grayson Halton coming out of high school, which Sammy Chandler just said. Sammy's right. He has like an 80-inch wingspan. The guy's got ridiculously long arms. He's got a long wingspan, which allows him to keep offensive linemen off of him. So he's apparently announcing again on Saturday, and everyone expects it to be OU. But guys, this is not if you had asked me what flip might be happening to OU, I could have gone 20, 30 players before I got to James Carrington at FSU. Like I might actually gotten to like closer to 50 players. He said, well, give me another one. This guy, give me another one. This guy. So I'm a little surprised by this. This doesn't fit the Nagy narrative of what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But if they get T-Ron Richardson and then you have Tank Carrington, you've got T-Ron and Brian Harris can both be 300-plus defensive tackles, very active and athletic. And maybe at a minimum, Tank Carrington, 6'2", 280, with a burst off the line, and he's doing kind of he's doing the Grayson, just a repeat of Grayson Halton. But am I surprised? Yes. Do I understand it? No, not really.
I think to me, obviously, Nagy's kind of running the show on that side, but this may be one of those ones, if he were to flip to us, this may be one of those ones where this is kind of like a coach's call as far as like a Bates or Chavis or in between, as far as like, hey, we really like this kid. We think that we could do damage with this kid. Because to me, when you look at him, he's very disruptive. Like he's quick.
He's making plays.
Quick first step, violent hands, able to get he can bend a little bit, he can come off. I mean, it's all that you everything that we've heard about, like a Nigel Smith guy that can gotta go in between, do all those different things that we're talking about now. But just looking at his film right now,
but he's not. But he's Nigel's 6'5", 6'4".
I get that.
265. So,
but this kid right here, if everybody on this panel, I think we all love G Baby. I would say right here, if that's the comparison you're throwing out there, to me, he looks like if he develops, if he comes here and he really takes to, he could be probably better than a G baby.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ceiling. I'd love to get an accurate height and weight on him right now, right? But that's the problem. That's the first problem, right? If he's 6'3", 260 or 265, 270, and he's lean and he can easily put 15, 20 pounds on him, and he's 6'3", 285, and he's quick.
Well,
he's a blur.
Can play Bishop Gorman, he can probably play here.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing at Bishop Gorman, so he's going against good comp. I mean, it's the film. There's some plays you're like, wow. And then there's other plays you're like, why is that in your highlight reel, dude? I mean, it's like he didn't edit it down, to make himself look the best. The biggest problem is, the other thing that no one's mentioned is he was highly rated 12 months ago. Okay, he was top 100 on 247, highly rated. He has tumbled to where he's now a 3-star in the 500, 600 range. So that's what the recruiting services think of him. Now, Nagy's telling us, don't listen to them. Kyle, look at, there's a picture of him next to Todd Bates. He's not 6'1". He's just not. I mean, he's the same height as Todd Bates.
No, anyways.
Todd Bates is not 6'1". He's just not. He isn't. He's more like, so that's why I want a height and weight, like in socks and a weight, right? But the thing about it is that it doesn't fit. The tweener, undersized guy doesn't fit the measurable stuff that Nagy's been holding everyone to the fire. This is why we didn't take Mason James. This is why we moved away from Taj Overton. It's inconsistent. Carrington didn't reclassify. Sammy Chandler's saying that in the chat. He didn't reclassify. He's always been a 2026 kid. So that's my only point. It doesn't mean that he can't be a good player. Doesn't mean that he can't turn into some old SEC guy if he's at 6'2", 290 and just muscled up, twitchy, and making plays in the backfield left and right. It just doesn't fit what we've been seeing the last 4 months. That's all. It just doesn't fit what's been going on. The Nelson kid from Arkansas, he's like 6'5". Daniel Norman, 6'4", 6'5". No problem, Sammy. There's been a lot of reclassifications from 27 to 26, but Carrington's just not one of them. He just doesn't fit what we've been talking to. He just doesn't fit the mold, the measurables test that we've been told is valid, right?
Right. But also, I think that, and he said this a bunch too, is that he wants these coaches to be able to say they want this guy or that guy. And if you've got Todd Bates getting in your ear telling you that this guy's worthy of being here, you should listen to Todd Bates.
Yeah, but pre-Nagy, Jason, it also looked like OU was backing off him. So he wasn't that interested in OU, and it looked like OU just sort of backed off him. So really, I was not surprised when OU canceled his official visit. I mean, and it was pretty public too. He's not going to OU. OU canceled him. Maybe they've come back to look at his film, and they've met in the war room, and the Nagy guys have looked at his film and come back to him and said, hey, what about this Tank Carrington guy that we moved on from? And Bates he was kind of disinterested in us, and we had other guys that we were looking at, so I canceled his visit. And they're like, well, I think we should give him a call because, or he's called us. I think his dad is an NFL guy. I may have that wrong. So maybe there's a connection there. Someone he knows calls Nagy and said, I don't really want to go to FSU. Is the OU door still open? And OU redid their evaluation of it. So I don't know, but he doesn't fit the measurables model that Nagy has been, for the most part, strictly adhering to. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Again, I'm super high on Brian Harris. I think Teron Richardson has a massive ceiling. The floor is low. Carrington, we'll see how it all shakes out. But it's certainly an interesting story in August. I had not anticipated. They're working on flipping the Jacob Curry kid, the linebacker from Miami. I think Orlando, Miami, that is committed to Northwestern. Now that OU's wants him, guess what Miami wants? They want to get involved. And watch every other SEC team get involved, because the kid on film is not this low 3-star. He's flying around, hitting folks. He's got a sub 4.5 speed, 37-inch vertical. Kid is an athlete, long wingspan. So that's another piece of recruiting news. Looks like Jacob Curry will be on campus for Michigan. Braden Allen should be on campus for either Illinois State, Michigan, or maybe Michigan as well. Maybe he'll wait until Auburn for an official visit. It's hard to know, but there's stuff happening there. We'll see some. I think the next shoe that needs to drop is offensive line. We need more than 2 offensive linemen. So we'll see what happens there. But the Michigan game, last recruiting thought, the Michigan game is going to be stacked with kids for 27 and 28. And all those in-state kids that OU offered, I don't know why they wouldn't be at the Michigan game if they're interested in OU at all, right? Free ticket, Saturday night, Labor Day weekend. What the hell else are you doing? Might as well go see OU play Michigan, get wined and dined by the Sooners unofficially, as much as they can do, and go see a great college football game with a great environment. So I think you'll see the visit list for Michigan, which is already very good, just bumped up to another level with Dallas area kids and in-state kids. So, if OU can, this pains me to say this is the biggest out-of-conference home game that's shaping up since Ohio State in 2016. That game was loaded with recruits. And, of course, we got our teeth kicked in because Mike Stoops thought it would made sense to cover JT Barrett with a slow linebacker. And Baker had a terrible day, and we had an offensive line injury and a couple other things. But I also –
Did you see what Sammy Chandler was asking you?
What did he say?
He's asking about flipping KJ Ford. Is that possible?
I guess, but why do you need KJ Ford with the 3 other defensive ends you have when you need a safety in the class and you need 2 more offensive linemen? If you could do it and you're just in the and Nagy's just in the talent acquisition mode for the rest of the class, right? Like, I've got the pieces I need. I'm just going to get the best kids I can flip. After he adds a couple of pieces, and then he's just like, I'm in flip mode. I'm just snagging the best kids I can with the money I got left in NIL. If that's the case, then sure, grab KJ Ford, but get 4 defensive ends in the class, bolster that position, because last year you only signed CJ Nixon. I think he will try hard and he'll do everything he can, but I just don't think Alex Shield Knight is an SEC defensive end. I don't see, when you look at that room and the bodies in that room, he doesn't add up. So if you want to add an additional defensive end, that could work. KJ Ford and Krul could both be 2 guys who enroll early and get into your 2-3 deep at defensive end. So you start building up the bodies to replace after, Okoye and PJ and Wineleaf. That makes sense to me. Hijo DeSimp. Yeah, Nico's a safety in name only. He's a cheetah. He's not a strong safety. He's not a free safety. Bishop, yeah, we kind of need some receivers and we kind of don't. So I'd be fine with a 2-player wide receiver class. If they can flip at somebody else to go with Odom.
Unless you're going to get somebody that's going to make an immediate impact.
Yeah. So I guess, I think there's a couple of guys who will obviously hit the portal. I'm not going to name names, but we can all surmise who a couple of those names probably will be. If you can get, and again, nothing says you can't flip Davion Gross after your good start, right?
Yeah.
He decides he doesn't want to go all the way to Florida. That's fine. You can flip him. it's where they spend their flip dollars is going to be very interesting this fall. But you got to get a couple more bodies at D line, which hopefully they get, Richardson and I guess Tank Carrington. And you got to get more bodies at offensive line. We need at least 2 more guys. That's where I think, that's where I wish Nagy, I'd like to see a couple more offers there, or a couple guys flip targets getting visits scheduled to do there. Sammy Chandler says, did Jaden Petit flip from Wisconsin? If he visits Wisconsin in December, he should not sign. I mean, if you've never been to Wisconsin in December, it's like Siberia with cheese. I guess there's cheese in Siberia, but there's not as much cheese as there is in Wisconsin. But yeah, you could flip Petit, and plus Fickle and that offense is going to be terrible. He joked, Maxwell Robinson's a name to track. OU's heavily involved with him. There's some question if he can qualify. I think if he decided not to take any visits over the summer to try and buckle down on his academics. That's what I understand the situation to be. If he gets his academics in order, you bring in Maxwell Robinson because he can play offensive guard. He can also play right tackle, and he'll be 6'4", 310, 15 pounds easily. And he's got a lean frame. He's athletic. I'd take Maxwell Robinson if his academics are in shape. No point signing someone who can't get in. And an offensive line, I'm not sure I want to sign anybody who can't enroll early, who can't get that extra jump on their development cycle. I mean, you look at Fasusi and Foje, they enrolled early and they're hitting it. They're also elite, but some other players have taken advantage of that as well. But I think basically you need to enroll early unless you're like a superstar in another sport and you really want to try and finish that out. Other than that, I think enrolling early is the new de facto standard.
All right. Look, we've been on here for damn near an hour and 30 minutes, folks. That is it for tonight. We gave you recruiting. We talked about the old line. We talked about a lot of different things. This is a great pod right here, fellas. So with that being said, guys, you got anything else to say?
Orange down. Bevo, the poster guy for moms not smoking during pregnancy.
We are 9 days away from Farmageddon, sponsored by Guinness.
Farmageddon in Dublin. All right, folks, we out of here.